So now we're going to have a presentation coming from Brazil. So Rafael Braem Velasco, he's a World Bank consultant, and he's joining us to explain how we can identify corruption risk in Brazil, new measurement of effective oversight. So this is an application of AI, and I think it's a very important one, right? So we don't have money in Latin America, and the money that we have sometimes gets in the wrong hands. So that's obvious for all of us. But let's try to see if Rafael can help us to find a solution to that. So whenever you're ready, Rafael.
So good afternoon to you all. It's a great pleasure to be here. I would first like to thank the invitation and the excellent coordination of this event. I would like to congratulate Omar and my friend Sebastian Acevedo, and as well as all the other individuals who have organized this summit. So first of all, I'd like to say that this presentation is about an ongoing project in Brazil in which we are using data analytics for optimizing the process of detecting corruption. That is being carried out with several law enforcement agencies in Brazil, and it has already led to concrete action to specific police and public prosecutors' offices operations against individuals and firms, etc. So I would like to show you the decision support systems that we have developed to address this issue. So first of all, just like to acknowledge that this is a project supported by the World Bank and by the Spanish Fund for Latin America and the Caribbean, and some basic thanking notes to Daniel Ortega Neto from the World Bank, to Otávio Paulo Neto from the Paraíba Public Prosecutor's Office, and to all the other key partners who are in this area with us. So, as you all know, corruption is probably one of the most relevant problems in Latin America. It has a huge impact on the GDP, and especially on the quality of essential public services. And it is a complex system, it is a complex problem, it is related to several complex systems, but we are addressing one specific problem. And this problem is the low analytical maturity of law enforcement agencies. And this problem can be translated into two specific suboptimal decision-making process. The first one is the process of selecting what are the high-risk firms inside the specific jurisdiction, such as in state or a municipality. So the current approach consists of resorting to specific complaints through whistleblowing channels, etc., for detecting the high-risk firms. And what is the limitation? It's quite obvious, because it only brings information related to the tip of the iceberg, to a small percentage of firms who, for some reason, have been the object of a complaint. And our approach is extracting 203 red flags automatically related to the entire population of public contractors and bidders in a specific jurisdiction. And in order to contextualize this problem, in São Paulo, there are, for instance, in São Paulo State, there are 48,000 firms that have participated of procurement procedures. And right before the adoption of this system, there was no systematic analysis being carried out in order to identify the high-risk firms. So, and the second suboptimal decision-making procedure is, once a specific investigation has started, with Alpha Data Analytics, the law enforcement agencies go through paper-based analysis and simple Excel-based analysis, which are obviously insufficient and highly time-consuming. So our approach is basically developing several algorithms that are able to reflect known patterns associated to corruption. So there's a huge literature on that, which are corruption red flags, and we have several algorithms for extracting all these hundreds of red flags. Additionally, so we have here some charts detailing some red flags related to the partners of the firm, related to the political connections, related to shell companies, and so on and so forth. Additionally, we need to integrate a large data. We had to make a large data warehouse composed of public data, so we capture all the data related to Brazilian firms. There are more than 30 million firms in our data set, more than 15 million beneficiaries of cash conditional transfers, which are individuals who are in high risk of being used as strawmen, as they are humble individuals, etc. More than 30,000 blacklisted and debarred firms, more than 10 million public servants, and etc. So on the one hand, you need the public expenditure data, and on the other hand, you need the actual data about these relevant dimensions, such as firms, such as public servants, etc. So let's show the specific decision support systems running, as this will give us more a concrete approach. So this is one of our modules of the decision support system. So here we have data on 24,000 public contractors in Paraíba state at the municipal and state level. And here we have several red flags. So for instance, here, these are not all the red flags, but these are some of the red flags that are relevant. So does the firm have a partner who is a beneficiary of federal cash conditional transfers? That's meaning an individual who is the partner of a public contractor who is a very humble individual and therefore earns a CCT, is a beneficiary of a CCT program. Does the firm have a partner who has low technical qualifications, meaning someone who is the employee of another firm making less than 2 times the minimum wage? How many employees does the firm have? 1, 0, 10, etc. How many days between the date of incorporation and its first contract? Does the firm have an elected politician as a partner? Does the firm have the family member of an elected politician as a partner, as we are able to capturing huge amounts of data on news, etc., to infer for a percentage of Brazilian politicians who are their family members? Are there public servants as partners? Are there public servants working in the same governmental unit that has carry out that procurement procedure? Are there firms that have bidded against other firms with whom they share the same, with at least one shareholder in common? Are there stubborn losers, as we call them? These are firms that participate on a large number of procurement procedures and always lose. And at the same time, you want to know who are the firms that win procurement procedures against these stubborn losers. So let's check it out how the system works. So let's choose here, this is a live presentation. So I want to choose firms that have at least one public servant as a partner, and at least one partner who is a beneficiary of a cash conditional transfer program, meaning a very, very humble individual who might be used as a straw man. And last but not least, I want also the firms that have at least 120 days, that have been incorporated at least a maximum 120 days before the date of the first contract. So these are firms that have been created just to win a procurement procedure. So I filter here, and the system tells me that there are 14 public contractors that match these chosen parameters. They have 26 million reais in public contracts. Here's a list of all these firms. So I will choose one specific case here, which is Contractors. It's a firm that has 16 million reais in contracts, which is a relevant amount of money in Brazil. Here we have the partners. So we have here this lady, Maria das Graças, who is a beneficiary of cash conditional transfer program, meaning that she is a very humble individual. Also, there are public servants. So we have here Moacir, who is an engineer. We have José Kennedy Leandro Gomes, who is a driver, making the minimum wage. So he's a driver working at the City Hall of Cajazeiras, making the minimum wage. And he's the partner of a public contractor that has already earned 16 million reais in contracts. But José Kennedy, the driver, he also happens to be the partner of Incom, another firm that has won 4 procurement procedures against Contractors, which is a typical red flag for bid rigging and collusion. Last but not least, it was incorporated on April 20, 2011, and the first contract was executed on July the 4th, 2011. So these are clear patterns associated with corruption, and moreover, we have used the Google Street View API to open the actual address of this firm. So this is the actual address, and that's something that automates a typical investigative routine that law enforcement agencies carry out. So this is the first example here. So the second module of this decision support system is related to these graphs here. So as you can identify, in the previous case, the José Kennedy, he is a public servant who is a partner of a public contractor that has been that has earned contracts in the same jurisdiction where he works. And this graph here, which contains blue, yellow, and red nodes, contains all the other individuals who have the same red flag. So all the public servants in Paraíba who are partners of a public contractor that has earned contracts in the same jurisdiction that employs he or she. So if we search for him here, he will be somewhere in this graph. So he is from the City Hall of Cajazeiras, and if I click here, that will expand and give me the list of all the individuals who have the same red flag in Cajazeiras. And these patterns were previously unknown before the implementation of this system. Another module that we created was based on the fact that we concluded that the actual units, the intelligence units that have the mandate to carry out this type of investigation do not have the operational capabilities to investigate all the cases that can be, that all the red flags that show up using this system. So it was necessary to decentralize the knowledge about high-risk firms in a specific jurisdiction. So we create this tool, this other module of our system that basically gives a list of the high-risk firms inside each specific jurisdiction. So I've chosen the name of a municipality, which is called Bahia, a poor city in Paraíba, and that gives me the list of all the high-risk firms in that specific location. So now we know that there are 3 stubborn losers, 4 firms that have been created at least a maximum of 30 days before the date of incorporation, 6 firms that have a beneficiary of cash conditional transfers as a partner, 3 firms that have a beneficiary of cash conditional transfer and a public servant at the same time, and so on and so forth. So with this tool, the prosecutor in the actual the outskirts of a Brazilian state, because these are very remote areas, he or she is able to know the actual high-risk firms in that jurisdiction, and using the first module of our system, he or she will be able to extract a detailed report containing all the relevant risk patterns for that chosen firm. So this is a mechanism for optimizing both the selection of high-risk firms, and once this firm has been selected, to optimize the actual creation of evidences. And before that, these evidences required the analysis of a large amount of paper, etc. So a completely insufficient mechanism for such a strategic area. So I would like to conclude bringing some specific details about our warehouse. We have 500 billion reais approximately in public expenditure. We have already analyzed more than 300,000 firms, and so 2 specific applications of AI that are being used in this project. First, image recognition algorithms for detecting shell companies. So we have the data on the headquarters of each Brazilian firm, and with these algorithms that are being developed, you can identify those that are typical of shell companies. So shell companies have some specific characteristics. One of these characteristics consists in an incongruent headquarter, a residential area or a poor area that is not compatible with a firm earning large amounts of public contracts. So these are some examples of typical shell companies. And the other challenge using machine learning is actually aggregating all the red flags into a single score. And the main challenge for that, and that's a challenge that's probably replicable, that's also present in other Latin American countries, is the difficulty in creating a training set composed of previously punished firms. This challenge is due to the fact that each of these state-level law enforcement agencies have their own data silos, and even inside each law enforcement agency, the data management policies sometimes are pretty poor, and they do not record all the cases that have already been prosecuted and led to a concrete punishment. So this is a challenge, but we are being able to to deal with it. So these are two very specific, and the second area obviously uses machine learning for this purpose, which is the most appropriate way to address. And last but not least, in order to scale this type of solution and scale our algorithms throughout the entire country, we are using a strategy of scalable data unification. That means that we have analyzed, because each of these public procurement data sets have slightly different schemas. These are databases managed by different institutions. So we were able to analyze dozens of different public expenditure data sets, come up with a unified schema, and now we just convert each state level public procurement data set to a single schema in order to scale our algorithms. Otherwise, it would be excessively time consuming. So my last remark, my time is up, is that this sort of solution is highly necessary in the entire continent, specifically in Latin America. If the Brazilian law enforcement agencies in the main areas of the country, in São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, do not have this type of solutions, I can guarantee that in Bolivia, in Colombia, in Venezuela, in Mexico, there is a very similar demand. And data analytics is the only mechanism for actually addressing corruption and fraud in public procurement in a systematic way. So thank you very much to you all, and I would be like to bye-bye.